So the underlying concept of this video came from a long time of self-introspection and education, listening to old masters and reading. And this concept really changed my life when I was in a pretty dark place. And I hope that it can help you throughout your whole life from this point forward. And this concept is the concept of crossing at a ford. So this concept of crossing at a ford came from the Book of the Five Rings by a man named Miyamoto Musashi. I probably butchered the pronunciation, but look up Book of the Five Rings, and it's pretty decent. And according to him, crossing at a ford means similar to crossing the sea at a strait or crossing over 100 miles of broad sea at a crossing place. Um, it represents, you know, taking an opportunity to move from one area of your life to the next. He believed that the crossing of the ford, or crossing at a ford, occurred many times in someone's life. And it boiled down to setting sail even though your friends stay behind in a harbor, knowing the route, knowing the soundness of your ship and the favor of the day, and when the conditions are met and there's a favorable wind, set sail. Don't look back. And if the winds change within a few miles of your destination, you row the remaining distance. You keep going, even if the thing that was pushing you has now stopped. You continue pushing forward. And he believed that attaining this spirit and applying it to your everyday of your life would enable you to expand and grow your future self. So, what is the future self? It's different to every person. Who is the future self? What does the future self need? What do they want? And that's a question you should ask yourself. You know, Today, you're not your future self. Your future self is a different species than who you are today. It's a higher or even a lower evolutionary form of your current self. And your past is the same way. It's either a higher or a lower evolutionary form of yourself today. The actions of the past has culminated into creating who you are today and giving you the opportunities that you have today to move forward into the future. So in all you do, you really need to think about the future self and where you're going and how you're going to get there. And you need to set the course and be the captain of your own ship and not leave everything up to fate. Because, of course, there are many things outside of your control, but the actions of the past set you up for how you're able to react to the current situation. So, some foundations that I kind of look at when I think about my future self. So, number one is that no one is going to look after my interests or the interests of my future self like I will. And that's no one's going to put me before their own interests. I believe that institutions are agnostic to my success or failure, and that people themselves can be agnostic, work against, or even help me in the future based on their needs and how our interests interline. So I try to really look forward to my future self. And I look at things today, and if I'm going to buy something, does my future self need this? Will it be useful to my future self? Is this something that in the future will have more value, or at least the same value that it has today um, to me? And that can be monetary, social, entertainment value. Is it worth it for the future today? Will my future self look back on me and be proud? Will it look back on me and be proud of my actions and what I did to set the future self up for success? If not, then I'm not going to do something, or I'm not going to buy something, or at least I try not to. You're the captain of your own ship, and you need to have the courage to pilot it. And it's difficult at times, especially when it appears that storm clouds are all around. So, this book had a tremendous impact on just my individual life today, in that I had a job where I did well. I made a decent amount of money. I was promoted rapidly. I had lots of connections, lots of friends at this place. And I just had this feeling it wasn't sustainable for me, and I needed to take a leap and leave. And it was hard because I went into a new career that I had no experience doing, no no knowledge of at all, and I had to start completely over, entry level. Took like a 50% pay cut, but I knew that first, this career would set me up for more success with my family, which I knew my future self would appreciate more time with family today, because that's the most important thing, at least in my mind. Um, it gave us just enough money, but we can do things to make more money, especially when we have time and happiness to work on our own projects. And so I took the leap and I left. And it was hard and we struggled for a little while, but we changed and we focused on certain activities that would reduce our spending, as well as we worked on not accumulating more debt and paying off debt. And we got to a good place. And now we're in a pandemic, and everyone I knew at that old job has now lost their job, been fired, and are stuck, which is really sad. But, you know, they'll find a way. So it almost seems like fate that it happened, that I left there, and I thank God for giving me the foresight to do it. But I set out and I sailed the ship away, and I chose, and I remember telling my boss this quote about leaving the harbor when your friends stay behind. It was time for me to go, and I had no ill will towards them. It's not that I didn't like them. I had some issues with the company and the way it was run, but the people I worked with, I genuinely loved, and I still do. Um, but I just knew it was time. So I moved on. As the captain, you choose where you go, but you don't choose the weather. But you choose what you do when the weather affects you. This pandemic makes me think of you know, say you know, the economy is having a lot of issues right now, but the economic issues and the overarching um, issues, structural issues that have been exacerbated by the pandemic were already there. And I feel like it's like I was out surfing on the water, and to catch a good wave and to see what's coming, you got to look far out. But majority of people don't look far out. They just talk amongst each other and they see waves coming, they try to catch them, and then they don't get it, right? So I saw a storm on the horizon with the economic issues, and I warned friends and family as it came about, but most people don't listen because, well, the sun's out right now. It's beautiful. And it was. I mean, that's how it is when something's coming. But then, of course, no one could see the pandemic coming unless you saw, in January you could if you were watching the news and such. But um, and at that time you could make decisions to safeguard yourself a little bit, but still the uncertainty is so much, and the economic effects are going to be so great, and we haven't even seen a piece of it. I mean, they're talking about They're talking about the economy rebounding. Um, I saw something today. Um, 20 million payroll like cut in April, and the futures were up on hopes that um, the economy is going to reopen. And you got you got the stocks have barely even dropped, but of course, you have government intervention to keep them up. So everything has lost its value. Money has lost its value against labor. People are making more on unemployment, and I don't know what to say about that because I have a job and I don't want people to lose their houses either. It's just the uncertainty is great. So it's amazing the uncertainty and it's scary, but so back to the surfing. The storm came and we all tried. I started paddling to shore a bit earlier than other people I know, but we're all completely overtaken right now and have no idea what to do. I think I know the way to shore and I think I'm almost there, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I could get blindsided and slammed up against some rocks any second, any day. But I'm still trying. I'm going to paddle as hard as I can, not going to stop, and neither should you. Um, you know the way. You know how to get back. It's in your senses. You know, just feel it. It's there. You know the way. So, this incident made me think about, future and investments more and the future self and preparing for them. And, there's a couple safety nets in the United States. And the way I kind of look at all this stuff is Social Security. Yeah, it'd be great if it's there, but I look at it like it won't be there. And even if it is there, the purchasing power of it may be next to nothing. I mean, as Alan Greenspan told Congress when they asked him about Social Security, he said, we can guarantee cash benefits as far out and as great amount as you want, meaning we can give people $1 million a year, everybody, but we can't guarantee the purchasing power because when the underlying value of money is just faith, as soon as the majority of people figure out that it isn't actually worth anything but their faith, people lose faith, and you know there is no. I think a lot of people are going to lose faith. I mean, I was the biggest proponent of the USA at one point, and now I'm just sad. It's just sad. Um, you know, I look at the retirement account, 401k, IRA. I still put into it, but I look at it like it'll be empty. I'll retire right at a market collapse and it'll be gone, all of it. Or, you know, the government can change the rules regarding an IRA or 401k. Now you should put into it, especially if your company matches, because it's the easiest return you'll ever get. You put in $1, if they match 100% up to a certain percentage, you put in $1, they give you $1. That's a 100% return on your investment. I mean, it's the easiest 100% return on investment you'll ever get. And even if the economy drops 50%, you still win. But so you should do that, but don't rely on it. Don't have it be your only thing. Your bank account, the cash you saved up, gone, empty. Purchasing power, zero. I look at it like that too. That's something that I can use to increase my skills, increase my knowledge, but I look at it like it'll be empty. Everything that I have that relies on someone else won't be there for me, for my future self when I'm 65. So what will I do? How will I make income? What have I put away for myself that I physically hold and keep for myself? What do I have that can generate true production and true value for people? What do people value? That's the types of questions you need to ask yourself and think about as a older person. Like, how are you going to do this? Say you work in construction today, what will you do when your muscles fail you and you can no longer work? Can you design? Can you supervise? Do you have the vision that's needed to get other people working? I have friends who are older who work like remodeling, and they have companies that do that, and they're in great shape, way better shape than I am. But one day one of them threw their back out just lifting up a toolbox, and it's like you start getting older, no matter how hard you try, your body just starts to fail, and that's normal. And it's not something you have to look forward to, but it's something you have to accept that that will happen to you. You will fail and you will fall and you will lose your strength. What will you do then? So think about that today and begin making plans for yourself for the future. Do not rely on other people because it's not going to be there anymore. I mean, it's sad, but it's how it is. And it never was there in the first place because the entire system has been and always has been built on basically stealing from the future through debasement of currency in order to cover expenses today and basically lying about the future value of the goods and the I mean the dollar against goods and services, and it hasn't held up at all, but most people are unaware and they say, oh, well, why is this so expensive? Why can I not work this job and make enough money for myself? Why can't I do that? This in the past they did this, and it's because you're basically your right has been stolen by the cheap lies and words of politicians who promise all these things. And I mean, we're all not innocent either in it because we accept it, but we don't really have a choice whether to accept it or not. But it's a serious lack of education of the underlying value of production and services. It's sad. Again, it's just sad, but what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is prepare for yourself, take care of yourself and your family. And I mean, it's, you know, as a man, I view my job and my life as my role is to, it's my responsibility and privilege to help take care of my family. And I'm happy with that. I like that. And I'm going to do what it takes. So how can you prepare for yourself in the future? Well, knowledge is the ultimate weapon for improving your economic utility. You know, you can have a field. A field can grow you X number of crops and bring you Y profit, but it's still just that one field. You can have a computer and a computer can give you the ability to do a job, but having two computers, you might be able to do a little bit more, but the additional item you have only increases your utility a little bit, not compared to the first extra computer you got. So each additional computer you get becomes worth less and less and less and less and less. But knowledge compounds on itself. It's exponential in its ability to expand your ability to produce and provide services and provide for yourself and your family. You know, knowledge expands the ability for you to produce in the field. So now you may know a better way to plant, grow, or harvest. You can do it faster. You can do it more efficiently. Knowledge is utility and compounds your possibilities, and your future self will always be happy for knowledge. So, right now during this pandemic, a lot of places are offering free education. A couple things I suggest. If you go to the Harvard website, EDX, there's a couple free courses. I'm taking one on Python programming and on blockchain. I suggest those. There's also a free code camp. I believe it's freecodecamp.org. I'll link all of them below. If you want to learn coding, I definitely suggest it, um, especially in the future. I mean, blockchain itself is a new technology and it's kind of like it's in the dial-up internet stage. A lot of people don't know what it is, don't care, don't think it's going to affect them, but it's going to affect everybody's life. So I highly suggest you learn a little bit about it. Um, I mean, this quarantine time is a remarkable period. All these places offering free education, unemployment benefits are up, and we talked about that earlier. The value of it will probably drop, but you have a time right now to grow your skills, spend time with your family, plant a garden. I keep seeing stuff on Facebook about people demanding to get out and saying I need a haircut and such. And I understand wanting to get out and get back to work and such, but Half the people screaming about it haven't gotten up off the couch for the past 5 years for anything except beer while they binge watch Netflix, and they haven't done anything the past 5 years anyways. Now they're being told to do it. Now they don't want to. So, I mean, I mean that may be exaggeration on the half number, but a lot. Um, so this is a time in which you can literally hibernate in your home and come out metamorphosized into a totally new, reinvented, newly educated person and evolve to take on the new world because times are changing. You're going to need to adapt with it. The harbor that was safe no longer is. I mean, wake up and look around you. It's in disrepair. It's falling apart. All the while, the harbor master and townspeople are screaming that it's the #1 harbor, nothing compares, and we're going to make the harbor great again. But I mean, let me tell you what, you never know unless you leave the harbor. This is a perfect opportunity to cross the ford. But most people won't. Most people demand security provided by others. They demand comfort provided by others and sustenance provided by others, but it's no longer going to be this way. I mean, security will be able only to be provided by you, comfort by your own spirit, and sustenance provided by the work of your hands and your mind. It's the only way. It's the way of the warrior. And are you a warrior or are you a peasant? A warrior embraces education and not brute strength. A warrior embraces adaptation and evolution and not hard-headedness. The way of the warrior is like a carpenter who sees and carefully selects wood based on its type and decides its place. Some being straight and hard, it's going to be used for the foundation, and some is knotted and ugly and yet strong and can be used for support. And some looks good but it's weak, can be used as veneer, and others are weak and pitted and worthless and will be thrown into the fire for warmth. The way of the warrior is like a gardener who, when clearing the plot, finds a precious and rare flower and builds a garden around the precious and rare flower, taking care to water it each day, destroying the weeds that rise up against it, while sowing seeds of future sustenance among it. The way of the warrior is like a writer who crafts words that can move mountains and drive people to do great things while cutting through wrong and evil and exposing the truth. The way of the warrior is the assumption of war while striving to maintain peace. Those that seek war are not warriors, and as they seek to send others against their own foe, whom they're too cowardly to face themselves. The way of the warrior is having the courage to cross the ford and to sail from the harbor when no others will. Create the warrior your future self will be and begin the journey now. Your future self depends on it and will thank you for making that choice. You know, I was looking at a couple things the other day. I saw, so today, looking at stocks, stock futures rise as investors bet on the economy reopening. That's what CNBC says. Yet, U.S. private payrolls dropped by 20.2 million in April, the worst job loss in history of the USA. Disney suspends dividend. Oil drops 7%. Dow futures up 100. All these headlines make absolutely no sense. It's insane. It's completely devoid of reality. Gold drops as dollar gains. Economies gradually reopen. Of course, being a contrarian, I guess, isn't a good way to make money, but it all makes no sense. Today I saw that, our president visited a mask factory, refused to wear a mask inside, and was filmed saying basically like they're talking about reopening the economy and stuff. And I mean, so when he was visiting the mask factory, the song Live and Let Die was playing in the background. Then later on he starts talking about how, we got to reopen the economy. Some people are going to die, yeah, but we got to get the economy back open. Yeah, I get that, and I want the economy to reopen, but lead by example. Wear a mask. I mean, we're living in a pandemic. Wear a mask. They said wear masks. Everyone should be wearing masks, but he sets the example of not wearing a mask. And don't get me wrong in thinking that I'm anti Donald Trump, anti-Republican or whatever. I honestly don't like either side. Every single one of them's corrupt. You know, here's another thing about beef being completely, or a fifth of Wendy's restaurants can't source beef. There's serious structural issues going on in the United States today. And the age of being able to just put money into a index fund or something like that is over. You know, you're going to have to be smart and think tactfully and do lots of research into what is real and what is fake, what has true value, because only things that have true value will survive through the transition that will come when the collapse of the valueless assets happens. So we are in a massive bubble right now still. It's not deflated, where things that have no value still are being propped up, but eventually they won't be able to actually get you anything. So, the there's a point where the most quote unquote the highest in number stock market in the world was Venezuela's. It was because they were going through hyperinflation, but it couldn't buy them anything. You know, oh, I put 1,000 bolivars in the stock market, and now it's worth 100 million bolivars, but I can't even buy a loaf of bread with that. Those numbers are made up. I'd have to actually look at the exchange rate, but I know at one point it was just insanity what was going on there. So, you know, the value, the valueless assets, it doesn't, the numbers, you know, we look at things, oh, we spend X amount of dollars on defense, but the amount of corruption that goes on in defense spending is insane. I mean, I was looking at a contract, I saw a contract for hats for like baseball caps, for promotional baseball caps for the U.S. Army. It was something like $80, $80 a hat. I mean, so when you're spending all this money, what does it truly mean? I mean, and that's something you look at. And what does it mean to you? What is the dollar worth to you? One thing that I like to do is I keep a spreadsheet of all major purchases that I make, and I take what it is, I take the price in dollars, I take the price in gold, I take the price in pork, beef, um, corn, and wheat, and silver. So gold, silver, corn, uh, wheat, beef, and pork. And I actually have been considering adding in some of the cryptocurrencies to that, so I can see how much this item costs today against all these other currencies, because all of these things are currency. Commodities are a currency. You know, anything that you can use to exchange for goods, services, or hold future value is basically a currency. So I take and I make a spreadsheet, and so every once in a while I'll update it whenever I'm making a big purchase, and I'll see, and I'll look back on other things too. So the other day I looked at my house, and my house has actually risen in value against silver, reduced in value against gold since I bought it. Um, and so you can kind of see how all the different things you purchase stack up, and then you can begin to model what is raising in value against other things, and what's actually going on in with the value of the dollar and um, different items, because you can see it across a broad basket of goods. So that's a pretty cool activity that I highly suggest you do. Um, and it helps you also to make decisions on what to buy next for investments and such. So, is the real estate market, or is my home more valuable against my selected basket of goods? And you select whatever currencies you want. You might not care about the price of pork and beef. You might not care about the price of corn, a bushel, or wheat, or the price of gold and silver, but you may be really into, 6 or 7 different cryptocurrencies. Put those ones in there. You may be into index funds. That's cool. Do it. If that's what you choose to hold as your currency, do it. But make this spreadsheet, and and begin to think about the value of items, not in relation to the dollar, but in relation to a bundle or basket of goods. Because being connected only to the dollar restricts your ability to think critically about the true value of something, because you're comparing it to something that's essentially valueless, except for the fact that you can use it currently today to buy goods and services within the United States, and the globe. But I suspect its ability to do that is going to decrease a little bit in the future, given changes that are happening. I mean, I made the video about the Marshall Islands blockchain and creating their own digital currency. You got the blockchain services network being put out by China and the digital yuan. You got Dubai 2021 initiative, which will undoubtedly lead to a digital currency there. I mean, the transaction costs of using dollars for these countries is going to increase exponentially against the blockchain technology. So its value just for that reason will decrease, not even including all the stuff going on with the Federal Reserve quantitative easing, purchasing of junk bonds and corporate bonds that are basically worthless. So, I mean, there's a lot of things stacked up against the US dollar. So start looking at value in terms of other items, things that you need and you want, you know, things that provide you utility, such as a home. The reason I picked pork and beef is, it's a protein. Wheat and corn, it's a calorie dense grain. So I can kind of see, like, by looking at pork and beef, wheat and corn, I can see, okay, how much is food costing um, over a long time versus this? Because protein and grain, then home, and then silver and gold is just the overlying value of a currency, in my opinion, versus others, but or the general population. But you could argue that silver is more of a determinant of industrial capability than currency, but that's an argument for a different day. So start thinking about things from that perspective. It's all part of crossing the ford and setting up the future self for success. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching and listening. Like, share, and subscribe for more.